The following is a Claibs online production. Lunch with Claibs and Joe on claibsonline.com.
And a happy Monday to you. Welcome on into Lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com, our Facebook and Twitter page, along with YouTube. I am Joe Roderick, joined alongside by Mike Claiborne, usually, who's having some technical difficulties here on our last day, our last show of 2020. Claibs, can you hear me?
You there?
I am here. Can you hear me? There he is, and there.
You know what? For some reason, Joe, I got a bad connection with you. I can't hear you, so maybe you can hear me.
I can hear you just fine. So it seems like your connection might be going in and out. And if
every
that's
time
the
you
case,
talk, it's really garbled. So,
well, I'll let you go and check that out, and maybe try to reconnect with us here on our final show here of the year, as we work on that. But as we do that, we'll welcome in to the show one of our main sponsors here of the lunch show. It's Jamie Burkhart of Mungenast Alton Toyota and Mungenast St. Louis Acura. Jamie, hello, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas to everybody. Good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah,
I wanted to know what Mike's dog's name was.
I'm
not going to know.
I want, he yelled. That might be Maya. I think that might be. I know he has two that run around the house, and he does a really good job of keeping them quiet during the show as well. But when Mike rejoins, we'll bring him back in. But last week we had Ryan Kelly on the show. This week we wanted to have you on just to thank you for the support that you've given us over the past year as we welcome Mike back in, and hopefully the connection works now. Mike, are you with us? It doesn't sound like it is. So, Jamie, tell us what.
Maybe when I log off, Mike will be able to get on. So, no, I just really appreciate everything you guys do for us. If anybody's interested in a newer pre-owned car, St. Louis Acura, Mungenast Alton Toyota, please give us a call, email me. I'm going to give out my cell number. I'm going to be Ryan Kelly Jr. here or somebody like that. I'm going to give out my cell number. It's 314-307-3827. 314-307-3827. Text me. Ask me any questions, whether you're buying a new or pre-owned car, whether you're buying from me. Just ask me to run a Carfax on something you find out in the neighbor's car or something. I can give you a clean Carfax, bad Carfax, whatever you need to know. We just want to help, and truly we want to earn your business. One other thing I wanted to mention is that Mike and I go way back from, I want to say 1998, maybe early 2000s. Mike was buying cars for me. So he goes way back from St. Louis Acura days. So we really appreciate what you and Joe, what you and Mike do for us and all the listeners. And we appreciate it very much.
Absolutely, yeah. We appreciate that as you guys as well. I know you had mentioned that when you and I first got together, and you and I first started working together. This was well before I even knew of claibsonline.com, and then once that all made its way into the mix, we realized that we had that common connection with Mike Claiborne, who looks like he's back on his computer now, and I'm wondering now if he can hear us better and if we have a better connection. Mike, are you with us now?
Maybe. Whoop, there he went. Maybe Mike can hear me. I can just relay all the questions to Mike. Mike, what do you think about the new Blues schedule? Are they going to sign Molina? Come on, what's up? Is Martinez going to be on the staff, on part of the 40-man roster? There you go.
Jamie's just taking over for Claibs here as we do this. So as the year ends and the new year begins, Jamie, at Mungenast one of the things we've been promoting a lot is the fact that you guys, with all of the COVID restrictions, that you guys are actually allowing taking the cars to people's homes and allowing test drives there as well, right? Absolutely.
We will deliver. There's lots of customers that are never even come and visit the great Tim McKernan, as we would reference off of 590. He's never been here. He's driving a 4Runner. Doug Vaughn's driving a Venza. He's never been here. So, yes, we can deliver anything and everything, new, pre-owned, at both stores. We do it all the time, and we'd be happy to set even for test drives. We can set up a test drive. You know what happens, what works great with that is we bring you a new car or pre-owned car, and if you have a trade-in, we'll evaluate the trade right there on the spot, and we'll leave a car there for you to test drive overnight, over a couple of days, and come back and try to put deals together. That's what we try to do, you know. Mike, I was mentioning I've been selling you cars since the late 90s, I think it was, when you were keeping your daughters happy.
Exactly. I've done great business with you guys over the years. And what do you look for in 2021? I mean, you know, we've gone through a pandemic, and I know the economy is it still seems like it's bustling, but from a car standpoint, it seems like you guys are trying to be more diverse as far as different ways to get people in a car. And then once they find out the financing might be their liking, they're even happier than maybe they thought they were going to be.
Well, that's absolutely true. With rates being ultra low and rebates, and customers are still trying to, I should say manufacturers are still trying to incentivize cars to keep things moving. I think in 2021, we're going to see, hopefully we even see a little bit of a short supply of new cars, at least initially. That's been one thing during the pandemic. You know, car dealers stayed strong after that initial April, May timeframe. Car dealers stayed strong. Cars were still moving, surprisingly, and production wasn't there. So we need to ramp up production, get everybody back to work, hopefully. All politics aside, I think the light is at the end of the tunnel, and we'll get there real fast. Come spring, I think it'll be a normal spring, I hope.
And I bet you're still looking for used cars as well.
Always. You know that, Michael. You know that. I'm sorry to interrupt, but yes, absolutely. Pre-owned cars is, you know, whether I have 3 full-time buyers. There's one here a couple feet away from me in my office all the time. We have 3 full-time buyers. Whether you want to sell your car or whether you need to find a car, we can find whatever you're looking for at any time.
And Jamie, before we let you go, you had sent me the video earlier. One of the Christmas gifts you got was a cameo from Tony La Russa, a cameo gift. I had actually the folks that work at Claibs Online. We were talking a few weeks ago if we should get Claibs on Cameo, and we were wondering how that would play in St. Louis. So you sending me that video just reminded me of that.
It's Mike. It's Tony ranting for 4 or 5 minutes gloriously, showing me his World Series rings. I mean, he goes on and on. My son-in-law got it for me, but yeah. The Mike Claiborne. I mean, that man's on the Mighty Mox. That man's on with Frank every week. I mean, that guy's everywhere.
As long as I'm not on the post office wall,
there you go. Cardinal Broadcast, the legend, Mike Claiborne. So there you go.
And coming in 2021, Jamie, we're going to get him on shirts. We're going to get his face on shirts as well. So
I would love that. Love that. I mean, look at that smile.
But Jamie, we look forward to continuing to do work with you in 2021.
So do I.
Hopefully we'll be able to come back and see you in that Toyota store and do the show from there here very soon.
Amen. Everybody stay safe. Happy New Year and God bless. Thanks Mike. Thanks, Joseph. See you.
Jamie Burkhart from Munganess Alton Toyota. They're joining us here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe. Claibs, it sounds like it looks like you have all of your connection issues resolved, and it looks like we're good to go with the show for the next half an hour or so. Am I right?
Well, we're going to do the best we can with what we have to work with, so we'll figure it out.
We'll hit the important stuff first. That way, if it all just comes crumbling down, we can just call it a show for the day, and then just post it up online. But we always start with the sad news whenever there is a celebrity that passes away, and it looks like Heaven got their full rotation yesterday as Phil Niekro passed away at the age of 81. The Hall of Fame knuckleball pitcher for the Braves and many other teams. Pitched till he was 48 years old?
Yeah, he was up there. An interesting guy for sure. His dad taught him how to throw the knuckleball, and he was a handful, man. I mean, there were teams. I remember in '82, the Cardinals faced the Braves, and we missed him because of a rainout. And we were lucky because George Hendrick admittedly could not hit him. And he was the sort of guy that if he faced your batting order, he'd have 2 or 3 guys messed up for the rest of the week. and just a very effective pitcher. He could pitch till he was nearly 50 because it didn't put a lot of stress on his arm. The thing was, you have to have your nails manicured properly where you can kind of dig into the ball and be able to flick it. And there's a couple of ways he threw his knuckler, but he was a very impressive player, a very popular guy from what I'm told amongst the other Hall of Famers. So this one really stung.
I have I have a friend from that I've gotten to know over the years from the gym. He's a gentleman that's in his late 70s, early 80s, and for about 2 years just knew him. He introduced himself to me as an old high school coach, baseball coach. Come to find out that he coached Michigan State's baseball team for a few decades and got drafted by the Braves out of high school back in the late 50s, early 60s. So he hid a lot from me. And over the past few months, I've learned a lot about his life and his playing careers. And again, this is a man that hid a lot from me and didn't, for one reason or another, was just very humble and not telling me about it. And I texted him yesterday to ask if he ever got to see him play, Phil Niekro play. Turns out he caught him during spring training in 1961. So,
wow. Well, and that's the thing about Joe catching. The problem is, it's not that why don't guys throw it, the knuckleball. It's they don't have anybody who can catch it. Mm-hmm. That's the hardest thing in baseball, is to try and catch a knuckleball. There was some catchers who had these oversized gloves, but man, I think Bob Euchre said it best. The best way to catch a knuckleball is wait for it to stop rolling and then pick it up.
Yeah, you would see him with the softball first baseman mitts or just the regular first baseman mitts, because you didn't need the padding around it to catch a 90+ mile an hour fastball. You just needed something that it would hit and stick in there. But it's been a rough year for the Hall of Fame, losing a lot of members this year in Major League Baseball.
And I think the NFL, pro football's, I think, coming up on 7 or 8 guys they've lost this year also.
Kevin Green passed away last week. Yeah, we found that out after we had finished the show. The Granite City native, who all the years of doing shows on Radio Row and him being a local guy, I never once crossed paths with Kevin Green. Did you?
No, I didn't. He's one of the few guys I just didn't know. I mean, I knew of him, but I never really knew him to say we shook hands or anything like that.
Yeah, I was thinking back to it too. I was especially with his role or with his run-ins in the world of wrestling too, back in the 90s when he was with WCW. Just never, but by all means, I mean, one of the most feared defenders of the 90s. There with the Steelers and a few other teams, and like I said, a local kid from Granite City that got his gold jacket just a few years ago. Same year as Orlando Pace, I believe. Yeah. For that. So we talked about Phil Niekro, the Hall of Fame pitcher, another top pitcher in Major League Baseball. This kind of an overnight move, just kind of shocking, making waves through the baseball world, as Blake Snell of the Tampa Bay Rays, who was famously pulled in the World Series last year when he probably still had a few innings left to go. The Rays traded him away to the San Diego Padres, and the Padres became instant favorites overnight to win the World Series next year.
Well, they're certainly going to be favorites to get to the World Series. Winning it is a whole different story, but you're right. From what I was told this morning, that Snell and Cashman, Kevin Cash, that whole way that thing ended just left a bad taste in his mouth, and it was probably time for a scenery change. The good thing about his situation for San Diego is the fact that he's under control. I mean, he just signed a new deal a couple of years ago, and he's going to make that rotation very, very good.
They have they already had Clevenger. They traded for Clevenger last year. Right. They had a rookie. They had a top prospect debut in the playoffs.
Yeah,
last year, along with the few other arms that they had already in the rotation. They're going to be a very deep team with Tatis and Machado in the middle of that order. It's going to be scary out west.
Yeah, I agree. They don't have any shortcomings. They got a really good bullpen. They don't really have any holes. And right now, when you look at them and you look at the Dodgers, they're coming after the Dodgers, and you really have to like what they've done. The Dodgers are a little older. They got one of the best players in baseball, but I think up and down the order, San Diego really doesn't have an easy out. Maybe they'd like to shore up their catching a little bit. I think that's the one key in finding a catcher who can handle the staff and also provide just enough offense to make them reasonably respectable.
Oh, there is a catcher out there that the Padres have been linked to, that being Yadier Molina. But Derek Gould and MLB trade rumors kind of throwing it out there too that the Cardinals have been exploring cash neutral trades this offseason. Mike, explain what that means.
Well, in that situation, when they look at making deals, they don't want to take on more salary. They want to have something that's commensurate to what they're already paying, where they don't want the payroll to get any higher. So if you've got a guy on your ball club that's making $8 million, you're going to look for a sum return of that same amount of money. Maybe it's 2 players, maybe it's 1 player, maybe it's 3 players, but you just want the number to be $8 million. And that's what they're looking for. They do not want to increase the payroll as we speak. So if they move a guy, they're looking to get something in return that's going to be commensurate to what he's making, or open up enough space where it's not going to take you too far over where you're already set at.
Yeah, still in talks with Wainwright and Molina. Those 2 names still out there. Still heavy interest within the Cardinals to bring them back.
Yeah, but you know what? At this point, what's there to talk about? I mean, everybody knows what the numbers should be or what it should be. So are they waiting to see what other teams are going to make an offer? Where they can counter, or do they just say, there's no hurry to get anything done? Spring training is at least 2 months away, in my opinion. So, I don't know if there's much more to talk about at this point.
Could it be
more creative in contract structure?
So last year we saw everybody in Major League Baseball get their contracts prorated due to playing 60 games instead of 162. Could part of that be just waiting to see if you're going to play 162 games or if you're going to play 140 games, and then knowing knowing exactly how much money you're going to get? So if you sign for 10 million, you don't want to have that 10 million prorated. If you say you're going to sign for 10 million, you want $10 million no matter what.
Well, the players have said that the contract calls for them to play 162 games. The owners want to move the season back, but as I mentioned to you last week, here's one of the ways you can solve it. You just play 7-inning doubleheaders on Saturday. Every Saturday you play 2, a noon and a 6, or a noon and a 5, 7-inning games. And that way you make up for the games you probably wouldn't play in April, because you want to try and move things back as much as you can.
Yeah, by the way, the noon and 6, seeing the way the players went about it last year, and you had more contact with them than I did, I feel like they really enjoyed playing and then playing that other one 15 minutes after that. Just get it done instead of being at the ballpark for a noon and a 6.
Well, but here's the reason why you have to split it up, because you have to turn over the ballpark, because you're having 2 different crowds. Two different people are paying for tickets.
You think you're doing that? You think that's how they're going to go about it?
Yeah, you got to have the games. Yeah, I mean, that's how you make money, because you have 2 different games to play.
Right.
You can't. Now you could do a package where you say, all right, your ticket costs $25. You know what? For 40, you can come see both of them, or 45, because then you're making the money on the concessions as well for 2 games. So you have to have 2 separate games that count. Where they add up to the 162, but you have to turn over the ballpark to include another set of fans.
Yeah, the NHL, their season gets started in about 2 weeks from now. January 13th is the target date for the start of that season, and the Blues have already said, through February they will not be having fans at the Enterprise Center. At least. So they're looking at maybe opening things back up in March and letting fans in there, which would be good news for the Cardinals, because if they're letting fans in at Enterprise in March, they're definitely going to let some number of fans into Busch in April or May, if that's the case. But the Blues went out last night and signed. Well, I guess shouldn't sign. They invited Mike Hoffman into the organization for a professional tryout, as they are looking to now that they've lost Steen for the year. Tarasenko, who knows when he'll be ready to play. They need some more offensive help. They need some help on those top 2 lines. So Mike Hoffman being brought in, the former Ottawa Senator.
Interesting move. I guess my question would be, if Mike Hoffman was such a hot commodity, why wasn't he signed by now? And he has a little baggage with him
He
too.
does. Yep.
That didn't end well in Ottawa with he and Eric Carlson and somebody's wife and all of that. I think that's water under the bridge for the most part. But I also feel like there's got to be another it factor in why a guy like this was still sitting out there, unless he thought he could get $6 million on the open market, and maybe that money wasn't available for teams because A, the cap, and B, the pandemic. So he's probably taking a little bit of a pay cut in hopes of having a good enough season where maybe there's a long-term deal on the back end of this.
Yeah, only 31 years old too, so a very young, and this was out there without a team all the way until the end of December. So see how that fits in with the Blues coming in a few weeks. And like I said, as far as the NHL season goes, you're seeing, I think was it Lundqvist today announced that he's undergoing heart surgery and he's done for the year too. So
yeah. I think his career is over. I mean, at his age and at this stage, the recovery time from a heart procedure, and let's face it, anybody who's got a heart issue, teams are going to be very leery of from a legal standpoint. So I think maybe his career, unfortunately, might be coming to an end, which puts Washington in a tough spot because he was going to be their backup guy. So now they've got to go out and try and find a goaltender before the season starts.
And not to mention, there are still COVID risks out there. There are still players testing positive for it, and that's going to be no different. We already had an NBA game canceled early in the season because of that, and that's not going to be the only one that gets canceled this year. There's going to be NHL games that have been canceled. The NFL somehow is, unless something happens over the next few days, the NFL is beyond lucky that they have not had to cancel a single game and that all 32 teams are going to play 16 games after next Sunday.
Well, but
it's amazing.
Different setup. I mean, they have one game a week, where if you notice, they just moved the game into next week or played it on a Tuesday or whatever.
The fact that they made it all work, though, is incredible. Having games on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and just throughout, the way they had to move stuff around all season, that they were able to somehow make it work and not at one point had to say, you know what, we have to scrap this game. These two teams aren't good. We're scrapping it.
I think it was easy. I mean, A, you didn't have to worry about fans. B, you could put the game on at any time from a TV standpoint. And C, as I mentioned, because you only had one game to worry about, I didn't think it was that much of an incumbent where they had to deal with issues unlike the other sports who play on a more regular basis.
You see, and I look at it, what was it this last week? What was it? Bengals and Texans. What was one of the games? Neither one of the teams are bad enough to where they were in the running for a top pick. Neither of those teams are going to make the postseason or anywhere close. A game like that, if there was an outbreak on one side, they wouldn't have cared in week 16 if they had to reschedule that game or not. They just would have said, you know what, you're done. We'll get better. We'll, everybody test negative, and we'll see in week 17.
Yeah, but I think it's not that easy. I think there are too many other ramifications that come with it in trying to play the game from a contractual standpoint for players. The TV revenue that you were going to continue to get. I think it was a lot more challenging to go that route than just blow it off. I think you want to play it. You got 6 other days to try and play it before the next week is concerned. So, and then you had a roster issue where you had to have X amount of guys healthy. So, and we've seen teams that were short. We saw Cleveland that was short. We've seen some other teams that were short. But as long as you have enough to fill out a roster, who cares? That's all they really worry about.
By the way, speaking of filling out a roster, this just came across right before we went on the air. The Washington football team released their 2019 first-round pick, Dwayne Haskins, earlier this morning. They benched him earlier this season, or yesterday, I guess, after he won the starting job, and he's now been released from the team. That's one of the all-time bad first-round picks right now. Hopefully he goes somewhere else in a better system and has some success, but a number 15 overall pick gone that quick.
Well, he asked for it. He stepped in at time after time after time. He wasn't physically ready to play. He wasn't mentally ready to play. He was very irresponsible off the field. and he just basically became a bad teammate in a locker room in a very short period of time. There's going to be a great sigh of relief in that Washington locker room now that he's not there, because he became a true distraction. What happens to him next? Well, he's going to have to do a lot of soul searching and convince somebody to bring him in for at least a workout. I'm not sure about his future. He could be out of the game. Somebody might kick the tires on him, but he's shown no reason for anybody to really make a huge investment in him at this point.
Knowing the way the NFL works, if Washington happens to make the playoffs, whoever their first-round opponent is, it's probably going to bring him in for at least to spill all the knowledge he has on whatever offense they're running.
Doubt it. You don't even want to be near a guy like that. And you bring him in, so that means you're going to blow up another roster spot for a guy that you're not going to keep around anyway. It's hard enough to find players who can actually play if they're not sick or hurt. So to burn a roster spot on a guy who can give you an idea of what they like to do when maybe he didn't even know, which was apparent. There's enough video, enough film on teams now, information, where that doesn't necessarily apply like it used to. And remember this, you now can hear the cadence, you can hear what's being said in the games, where you even have a better idea of what checkoffs are going to look like.
So in the AFC this weekend, you have Tennessee, Miami, Baltimore, Cleveland, and Indianapolis are all 10-5. One of them is going to miss the playoffs.
That's the NFL for you. And I appreciate Clarence Gaines. The one thing I did not include about Haskins is the fact character. The guy didn't have enough. And that's something in this day and age of pro sports, with all the things that are going on with respect to COVID, you better have a little bit more character. You can't take a loose cannon like you used to. And I think the NBA is seeing it with James Harden. You have to have character people, man, because you need them to be able to step up and show why they are who they are as far as good athletes and also good people. Yeah. Now, going back to your other point, I'm sorry, bring that back up to me again.
This one? What are you talking about?
I
thought, okay, you said that. No, I was saying the 5 teams, Tennessee, Miami, Baltimore, Cleveland, and Indianapolis are all 10-5. Those 5, and they will be playing, those 5 teams playing for 4 playoff spots this weekend. So one of those teams is going to be missing the postseason.
And you know what's interesting about that? The one team that's not going to make it is going to be one play short. You think about all the plays that are run during the course of a year. If they'd have made one play somewhere else during the course of the year, they'd be in postseason. That's how close it comes down to. And that's the one thing about the NFL and I told you this at the beginning of the year, there's 2 weekends you don't bet the NFL. You don't bet the first week and you don't bet the last week, because you just don't know what kind of product's going to be on the field. You don't know who's playing for desperation. You don't know who's got the cardboard boxes out ready to go home. It's going to be a very topsy-turvy weekend, and the NFL loves it because they use the word parity every year at this time when they have so many teams that are trying to vie for a playoff spot.
Yeah, while on the other side, you have Dallas. Dallas and Washington are 6-9. And the 5-10 Giants are still somehow alive for a postseason berth if they win and the Eagles beat Washington.
Well, you know what's interesting about that, Joe, is what was it, about 6 weeks ago? We were talking about if Dallas was going to end up being one of the teams that have the first or second pick in the draft. They've managed. I still think they're going to blow up some things. I don't know how Mike Nolan comes back next year. Their offensive coordinator is rumored to be in line for the Boise State job, and I think there are a lot of people that would like that. And then there's Ezekiel Elliott, who to me has fallen off the table. I mean, he's nothing close to what we saw him as when he first broke in. So they've got a lot of questions to answer in the offseason, but overall, it's total chaos, and that's what the NFL loves at this time of the year.
It's, guys like Ezekiel Elliott. You saw it with the Rams and Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley went from being one of the top offensive producers in the league a few years ago to them being able to just say goodbye to him this offseason. And he's in Atlanta. Started off okay, but hasn't made much of an impact down there.
Here's a difference, though.
These running backs, and once they're done with them, they spit them out and they go find somebody else.
But the difference is Gurley was playing on bad knees. Ezekiel Elliott has not had a surgery of any sort that's precluded him from being a better player.
Look how much they've used him, though, and how much they've
Yeah,
just beat him into the ground.
Yeah, I think, but he's got to be responsible from a conditioning standpoint. That was one of the things that they were concerned about last year was his conditioning, and maybe he was just a tad too heavy, maybe a little too thick. He doesn't have the burst that he used to. That doesn't mean he can't get it back. But I think when you look at the Cowboys overall, how they have found themselves playing for a playoff spot is a miracle to me.
Absolutely. And if Dak Prescott would have been healthy all year, they would have run away with the NFC East. They would definitely have more than the 6 wins right now. It was with the Jets winning yesterday and the Bears beating Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence will be a Jacksonville Jaguar next year with the number 1 overall pick.
You think, again, I'm going to go back to my original point. There's a handful of guys that have had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to decide where they want to play in the NFL. And if you're Trevor Lawrence, and if you don't know who the coach is, you don't know who the coordinator is, you don't know who the left tackle is, you don't know who the running back is, why would you go there? Why? When you can easily say, I'm going back to Clemson or trade my rights.
I would see the trading of the rights or demanding to go somewhere else. But on top of that, though, where would you want to go? What team needs a quarterback where he would demand to go there? Because have we seen, since Eli Manning did it, have we seen another team, have we seen a player demand that a team not trade or not draft him?
Have we seen a player that good?
We've seen top quarterbacks. We've seen guys who are good enough that they could have made those demands.
Who?
And you look at the amount of Heisman winners and amount of number 1 overall quarterbacks that we've seen over the last few years and how good some of these guys were coming out of college. They easily could have made those demands.
Well, let's take the Heisman off the table.
When you're looking at a year like, what was it, Andrew Luck and RG3 when they went 1-2, that probably might have been the best 1-2 since the Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning, or the Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf years.
But
when you look at that,
the difference, though, those 2 teams they went to had some components around them. All right, so it wasn't like they were just total disasters. And the Heisman, and here's where I think people make a huge mistake. They confuse the Heisman with the pros, and there's no real correlation other than it's a trophy that tells you were a really good college player. We've seen some Heisman winners that have flamed out in the NFL like that. So, again, if I'm Trevor Lawrence, I got to know all these things before I decide whether I'm going to play there or not. Because if not, then he's just going to be just a guy that's going to get the brains beat out of him, and he won't have the career everybody thinks he should have.
We saw the Rams a few years ago, the year they left St. Louis. They traded up all the way from whatever it was, 13, 14, all the way to number 1 to get Jared Goff. I don't see any of these other teams. I don't see a team out there having the type of package to trade up that much, or I guess I don't see Jacksonville having the desire to trade that.
Well, they may not have a choice. So here's what
I don't see it happening. I don't see him either going back to Clemson or demanding it one way or the other.
It's an option. I mean, obviously he wants to play, but he wants to maximize his opportunity to win as quick as possible. And if you don't have the other components, then, all of a sudden you're saying you're David Carr or some other guys who've come through here. They've just, not succeeded because they just didn't have enough of the other components to work with it.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I look at it. I don't see it happening, and I think that you're going to see him go there. And the thing is that I feel like Jacksonville's ownership is good enough to where they're going to do everything they can to put those pieces in place. That they might trade away.
Well, hold on. How many quarterbacks have they drafted in the last few years in the first round?
Jacksonville?
Yeah.
Have they drafted any in the first round?
They the stiff that went out to he was a top guy. He was one of the top guys in the draft, and I can't think of his name. He went to a small school and it just didn't work. I think they drafted a couple of first-round picks that were quarterbacks. Didn't they take the local guy, Blaine
Gabbert?
Gabbert?
That was how many years ago? That was a while ago, wasn't it?
Gabbert
Yeah.
wasn't that far long ago. I mean, so my point is,
Like
this
that was like 8 years ago.
organization's had chances to draft. They've done a poor job of it as far as guys they've been able to develop. So my question to you would be, what makes you think that they're going to get this right when they've messed it up the last few times?
I mean, it depends on who they bring in for that. They very well have they interviewed your guy for the GM job yet, Louis Riddick?
I don't know.
I know a few teams have interviewed him. It doesn't look like he's going to be staying long at Monday Night Football for that. But by the way, actually, you know what? Gabbert was 10 years ago. That was that was 9-10 years ago, because today
they didn't have another guy after Gabbert though, and I can't think of his name. It escapes me right now. And this was more recent.
This day in St. Louis sports history. It was 10 years ago that Mizzou played Iowa in the Insight Bowl. And it was a Blaine Gabbert pick with 5 minutes left that cost them. You can go listen to that right now at claibsonline.com and hear that. It's bowl games for the next few days there on this day in St. Louis sports history. Because one of the things that surprised me that we have in that
Blake Bortles. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, yeah, that is. So that was 2014 out of University of Central Florida was Bortles. That was 6 years ago.
So
that's a lifetime when it comes to bad picks. That could be two coaches and two GMs.
We don't have a lot of time to go through all of the Jacksonville picks, but I tell you what, by next week I'll have them, and then you can tell me where are they now.
Okay, that's fair enough. So the Mizzou, this was supposed to be this weekend. Or this week was supposed to be the first time that Mizzou and Iowa played each other since 2010. The time that they played before that was 1910. So they went 100 years between playing each other there, even though they are bordering states.
No excuse for that. No excuse whatsoever. Those two schools should have been playing each other a lot more. Hey, it's not. Wait. First of all, neither one of them's that good not to want to play the other one. Okay.
Right.
So that should be a game. And I said this last week about. When you do your non-conference schedule, I'm going to allow you to put a blood donor on. You should also play a team that was in a bowl the previous year. You should also play a bordering state school that's not in your conference. Or you should play a team that's in a comparable conference. You guys had similar records last year. Then you should play a team. If you're playing a team in the Big Ten, they should be playing somebody maybe it's Iowa. I don't know. But my point being, we've got to fatten up these non-conference schedules better.
The amount of Casey's General Stores that are probably on the road between Columbia, Missouri, and Iowa City, Iowa, it makes for a perfect sponsor of that Week 1 game too. You throw their logo on it, and it would make perfect sense for them to play each other in Week 1 of a season.
That's why it's not going to work, because it makes perfect sense. You're right.
So anyway, that game's canceled this week due to too many COVID cases on the Mizzou Tigers team. And Dave Matter was tweeting about this last night, that it's important to know that these weren't Christmas get-togethers that caused this outbreak. That's not what it was, because Eli Drinkwitz allowed the players to go home for Christmas. But it's too soon for those outbreaks to happen, or those positive tests to happen. This is something that would have happened back on campus before he dismissed the team. It's just something that, you know what, I feel like the Mizzou Tigers looked at this game as not being that important to them. They realized that the Liberty Bowl in 2020 wasn't as important as any kind of progress they could make for the 2021 season.
Well, I don't know. You always want to keep playing. And I don't think you want to leave a season like Missouri did with a bad taste in your mouth. But I just think it came down to numbers more than anything else. And I said this to you early in the year, that I didn't think it was a good idea for them to be playing, because we were going to have too many issues. I commend the coaches and players for going through it, though. And if a player goes home for the holidays then so be it. I mean, I think these kids deserved an opportunity to spend time because they've been so isolated throughout the course of the season. Remember, there's nobody on campus, all right? Which brings me to another issue of how you can keep guys on campus when you send everybody else home for safety reasons, but you have these people on campus so they can continue to play and make the school money. Sounds like professionals to me. Sounds like employees of the university to me, but they're not being treated that way.
One day they will be. Before we get out of here, I know your friend Clarence Gaines is watching us today. If we could somehow figure out a way to get him back in the Bulls organization, it would make me very happy because, Mike, I've watched 3 of their games already this year, and I'm already done with the NBA season.
Dreadful. I don't know. You know what? Well, I tell you what we'll do. We'll get CG on next week and let him talk some NBA with us about what he sees and what he thinks about where we're headed. Because you can draft, but you've got to have a little bit more of a solid foundation. And remember, that's a whole new staff as far as the organization is concerned.
Yep.
So I'm going to be a little bit more patient with them compared to some other people who just continue to get chance after chance. So maybe we'll try and get CG on next week and get his thoughts on where we're headed with the NBA.
There have been some blowouts already early in the years.
How about that embarrassment yesterday with the Clippers?
Oh my God! What's happening there? How does that happen? How do you?
Guys not showing up.
They were down 50 points. The Mavericks were up 50 points on the Clippers at halftime. If the Clippers or if the Mavericks didn't score, went scoreless the whole second half, they still would have beat the Clippers by 4 points.
Well, I think that just shows your lack of professional effort, and that's a concern this early in the year.
Yeah, it was a bad start. Clarence wanted me to know it's too early to write them off.
I would agree.
I want to win at some point. You can't play the Hawks, the Pacers, and the Warriors in the first 3 games and get beat. It's hard to watch early on in the year, but it is watching these games on TV and seeing no fans in the crowd and seeing how they have kind of dressed up the arenas is pretty interesting to see this year, and it was really nice to watch basketball on Christmas Day. So I was very happy that I had the chance to do that.
Good for you. Happy.
Claibs, what do you have anything coming up this week, or are you taking the week off with the
we're gonna visit with Mike March this week. Talk with him. Hopefully scheduling Paul Westhead, one of the very interesting coaches of college and NBA rank. And Bob Ramsey, who we talked to late last week. We're going to have that up here soon and talk about the Billikens, what they've done and what they look forward to doing. So it's going to be a busy week as we round out 2020.
Very nice. We have an in memoriam this week for Weekend Joe, kind of going over all of the folks that passed away, all the celebrities that passed away this past year. We're making cuts as we speak right now over who to leave out of the list. I mean, it's such a long list of those this year. And as you mentioned, your interview coming up this week with Bob Ramsey, I wanted to bring this up on the screen that we're using for the picks for you and Rammer in your weekly interviews.
That's from the old days at the old Kiel Auditorium.
What year was that? What year was this picture?
1985, 1985, I think, 1985 or 86.
Nice. It looks like Rammer's already worked up over a call in the first half of that.
I believe that was an NIT game, if I'm not mistaken, against a very good team, St. Peter's out of New York.
And if we asked Rammer right now, would he know the official's name that he was yelling at? They're
all the same to him. They don't need a name.
Well, Claibs, you have a wonderful new year as we have plenty of bowl games and everything else to watch this week. We will check in again in 2021 for our first show next Monday.
Looking forward to it. You be safe, and to all of our viewers and listeners, we hope they have a better 21 than they had 20, and stay safe. And we look forward to talking to everybody on the other side of this year.
We thank Jamie Burkhardt from Munganass Alton Toyota and Munganass St. Louis Acura for joining us at the top of the show. Also, thanks to Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. He was on our show last week, and the home loan expert, their social media pages posted his part of the interview with us, so you can see Ryan on with us, and also Ameren, Illinois, our title sponsor here of claibsonline.com. Still plenty of content each and every day up there at claibsonline.com. Subscribe to us on our on Spotify, iTunes, and Google for new content delivered to your phone each and every day. For Mike Claiborne, I'm Joe Roderick. Have a safe and happy New Year, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.